You see, Epstein wasn't just a rich pervert. He was part of a Mossad operation, blackmailing people in high positions of government around the world by using young girls as a honeypot. Police found locked in his apartment CDs labeled Young X with X. Alexander Acosta, who was the US attorney that approved Jeffrey Epstein's soft plea deal in 2008, said he was told that Epstein belonged to intelligence and to leave it alone. All evidence points to the fact that the intelligence agency Epstein was a part of was Mossad. Many of Epstein's associates were either connected to Mossad or high up in Israeli politics. His partner in crime, Ghislaine Maxwell, was the daughter of billionaire Mossad agent Robert Maxwell. After Robert Maxwell was mysteriously found dead, he had a hero's funeral in Israel, attended by the then president and prime minister. He also had a history of using his daughter, Ghislaine, to blackmail politicians with sexual favors. Like her father, Ghislaine was very well connected to Clinton, to Trump, to the British royal family, to name a few. She introduced Epstein to these people as a billionaire financier. But as a matter of fact, Epstein isn't really a billionaire. Forbes reported that there is scant proof that he had a fortune of that mass. His whole billionaire bit was a sham, a Mossad front. The money was actually coming from Victoria's Secret mogul, Les Wexner, who was Epstein's only client. The reason Epstein had a $77 million townhouse in New York was because Wexner gave it to him for $0. Now Wexner is trying to wash his hands of the whole operation, claiming that Epstein took $46 million from him against his will. But Wexner didn't just give Epstein money. He also gave him access to young girls through his lingerie modeling agency, Victoria's Secret. Wexner also runs the Wexner Foundation, whose stated goal is to fund Jewish leadership in Israel and abroad. Wexner Foundation gave millions of dollars to former Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak, who Epstein is good friends with, seeing as though Ehud was spotted going into Epstein's apartment with a bunch of girls. Wexner and Ehud would both benefit from silencing Epstein, making them suspects. Inside Epstein's New York mansion, police found a fake Saudi passport with his face on it but with a different name. This could have been linked to Epstein's work on Iran-Contra, where he sold Israeli weapons through a Saudi weapons dealer and playboy, Adnan Khashoggi. Perhaps Epstein sourced young girls for Khashoggi and other Saudi royals, like Crown Prince bin Salman, who Epstein also knew, who would now very much want him silenced. But this wouldn't be the only royal family that Epstein has dirt on. British royal Prince Andrew, pictured here with one of the teenage girls Epstein and Ghislaine acquired for him. He was the lead story hours before Epstein's death, because the released court documents gave details of his victim's accusations. Remember, this is a man who met with Epstein even after Epstein was convicted of pedophilia. So, the British royal family are high on the suspect list. Epstein is also linked to 4 members of Genie Energy, the Israeli company trying to steal Syrian oil out of the Syrian Golan Heights. Bill Richardson, who was on the board of Genie Energy, was accused of using Epstein's services for his pedophilic urges in the released court documents. Bill Richardson and the entire board of Genie Energy may be motivated to silence Epstein. After all, they were the ones that convinced Trump to keep troops in Syria and recognize Israel's annexation of Syria's Golan Heights, killing all hope for peace. Perhaps none of that would have been possible if it were not for Epstein's blackmailing of Trump. Democrats and Republicans like to argue whether Epstein implicates Trump or Clinton, but the fact is, both rode on his Lolita Express. 27 times in Clinton's case. In fact, Epstein's partner, Ghislaine Maxwell, sat front row at Chelsea Clinton's wedding. That was even after Epstein was convicted of pedophilia in 2009. And let's not forget what happened to Seth Rich when he became inconvenient to the Clintons. But Trump also held parties with Epstein at Mar-a-Lago, where Epstein brought the girls. And in an interview he said in the same sentence that Epstein was a terrific guy who liked girls on the younger side. So Trump knew what Epstein was doing. In fact, Ghislaine Maxwell used Trump's Mar-a-Lago to recruit teenage girls that worked there. It's time to face facts. Both Trump and Clinton had motive to kill Epstein. But the fact is, Epstein died on Trump's watch. So who do I think killed Epstein? My money's on Mossad. The Israeli intelligence agency that Epstein was a part of are themselves suspects in killing him. He was a compromised agent who had to be terminated before he brought down their entire operation. In fact, Ghislaine Maxwell's father, Robert Maxwell, is said to have been killed by Mossad, even though he was Mossad himself. And they killed him in a very similar way to Epstein, in that they left it ambiguous as to whether it was murder or suicide. But don't worry. I'm sure Attorney General Bill Barr will investigate what happened to Epstein and find out the truth, right? Too bad he's also a suspect, since he's connected to Epstein through his father, who gave Epstein, the college dropout, a job as a college professor. The death of Epstein is not the real story. He was murdered to cover up the real story, which is that world politicians and royalty are being blackmailed by Mossad by the use of pedophilia. The murder of Epstein should not bury this story. In fact, it should inflame it. Because if they can get away with killing such a high-profile prisoner, it just goes to show how deep their control and their influence goes. This deep state, this corruption, this pedophilia is now plainly in sight. And I hope finally people can come to understand that democracy is dead.